pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Invocation by Salvation Army.
All right, let's pray. Lord God, we thank you for this time. We thank you for the leaders here tonight, Lord. We thank you for the decisions that will be made. And above all, Lord, we thank you for a free country that we can come to meet like this and just get public input and get things hashed out like this without dictator just ordering everything that's going to happen, Lord. We don't take that for granted. We thank you for all the freedoms that you give us. We thank you for this town and for the leaders and for everyone present here tonight, Lord. Just help all of our opinions get heard and just guide the decisions that are made and just watch over us all through the night. I ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Sabers.
Here.
Rice.
Here.
Dosher. McCardle.
Here.
Barrington. Allen.
Here.
Sharks. Here. Smith.
Okay, we have a quorum. Approval of consent agenda items. Items appearing in consent agenda may be removed by a city council member for discussion at the beginning of formal agenda items. Is there anything you wish to remove?
Nothing to remove, Mayor, but could we bring up the application for the circus so we can show the road closure part of that? I want to just make sure everybody's aware that
There is an error on that figure. It should show Lawler as well from 7th to 6th.
Okay. And I just wanted to make sure people understood that Main Street will be closed for that portion of when the Corn Palace will be doing that.
Okay.
And Main Street will only be closed for a couple hours
Right.
that first day.
Approval of consent agenda.
Motion to approve by Mr. McCardle.
Second.
Second by Mr. Sabers. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address any of these items? Roll call, please. Did somebody-
Sharks. Aye.
Hold on a minute. Did somebody want to speak to these?
No, I was thinking you were asking for citizens input.
Oh, not yet. It's coming up. Okay, continue on.
Sharks. Aye. Allen.
Aye.
McCardle. Aye. Rice.
Aye.
Sabers.
Motion carries. All right, Mr. Stadler, this is for you. Citizens input. If you need to address mayor and members of city council on an item that is not on the agenda, excluding personnel items, please come forward to the podium, state your name and your concern. Presentations are limited to 3 minutes. Items will be considered with no action be taken. Fire away.
Thank you, sir. Dwight Stadler, Ward 4. I see that you're all still using the same notification process for surrounding property owners that I challenged a little over 3 years ago. At the bottom of the notification, it says, quote, "No response will indicate approval," end quote. If you're not sending those notices via registered mail or certified mail restricted to the property owner's signature for receipt, you have absolutely no objective evidence the property owner ever received the notice. Thus, it is unconscionable and questionable as to the legal merit for counting a non-response as an approval. I don't care if it's only for a survey. You are still counting them as an approval when you motion and pass them to be counted as approvals and include them in your minutes and records. You need to revise that statement to read something to the effect of, only those returned to our office will be counted, and send them registered or certified mail restricted to property owner signature. Yes, it will increase your postal expenses, but then and only then can you literally and legally say our survey notifications resulted in X number of votes in favor of or X number of votes opposed to the proposal before the council. Plus, it incentivizes the recipients to respond because they may fear an approval or denial based on responses received back. It gets the property owners, the voters involved, and puts the onus on their backs. It gives you true credibility that you are giving them the opportunity to have a say. When you examine the history of your current process, I strongly suspect you typically receive 40% or less responding to your notifications. You don't know with any certainty or objective evidence what the non-respondents are thinking or if they even received your notices. Bottom line, the current process needs to be revised. I would strongly encourage you to revise that statement as I asked in the past when it affected our neighborhood. I think it's important. You're putting the onus on the backs of the people. You're giving them an opportunity, a true opportunity to respond. When you say no response will indicate approval, you're basically saying, oh, it's going to get approved. Throw it in the mail, throw it in the trash, whatever. So the idea is make sure that you're giving people the opportunity for true input. Give yourselves credibility for being more inclusive of the voters or property owners in their say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to address council?
Hi, Sonia Vanderwick, Mitchell Township. I'm going to talk about 5G tonight. You've heard me talk about it before, but I don't know if I ever shared my personal experience of how just regular EMFs and RFs have affected me. And the reason why I want to bring this up, because you guys all know we're electrical animals, right? So our heart is electrical. When we die, the electricity's out, right? And it affects the environment, the animals, everything. Well, probably about 3-4 years ago, I started noticing I was having tremors in my legs and my hands. And I'm a healthy person. I try to eat right, stress reduction, all this kind of stuff, you know. And couldn't figure it out. I was working with a naturopath, whatever. Figured out some things. Nothing was working. And so I'd be sitting at church and I could just feel my legs, you know, anytime you sit, that they would tremor. And I don't know how many people in our community are having symptoms such as that or other things based on the radio frequencies and EMFs that we're being exposed to. And when I say that, I mean like cell phones, laptops, routers, because now your routers can be 5G capable, so 5G is even worse. It's also the towers, it's your light fixtures. I mean, if you put your hand, like if I put my hand on a phone for 4 minutes, or even a lamp, or even like a router or TV or whatever, your red blood cells start to clump. And when they clump, what does that mean? You're not getting good enough oxygen supply. So that can lead to a lot of these symptoms. And some of those symptoms can be lack of motivation, anxiety, depression, memory loss, fatigue, moodiness, loss of hearing, loss of taste and smell, blood clots, heart arrhythmias, shortness of breath, neurological issues, headaches, numbness and tingling, bloody noses, that can happen in kids a lot, seizures, psychological issues, rashes, radiation burns, and the whole gamut. And all this stuff has been proven. So what do we do? Well, I'm just thankful that I learned more about how that affects us. And from Beth sharing with me some different products that can neutralize those effects on you, but also reading about the research that's already been done. And we know that the FCC was found by the Supreme Court on the East Coast that they have not provided the burden of proof that these devices are safe. Well, now what's happening is we're having these 5G cubes that are available to put in your houses. Now, if you want to run and get one of those, I'm going to warn you, do not, please. And also check your routers. If they have a 5G capability, you've got to get on the computer and turn it off. And why do I say that? Is because 5G, you can go from megahertz to gigahertz. If you ramp it up enough, we're electrical beings, what's going to happen? We're going to fall over and die, and it has happened. So don't get those. And my concern, I guess, is that as a city, we need to be protecting our citizens, and that means we need to stop these OTARDs, over-the-air radio devices that can be put on your houses, and the 5G cubes that can go into your home. You as a neighbor have no recourse if someone, your next-door neighbor, has that device, and now you start having health care symptoms. And we also need to be looking at what's going on in our schools, because our kids are being affected by it, and you can see all the towers around. And this is what a meter looks like. This is what I got for my birthday, because that's what I wanted. And so I can figure out anything over 0.2 is too high. And you open up your phone, and you'll see it can go all the way up to 3. So anyway, that's it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to address council?
Hello, Mayor and members of the board. Thank you for having me. I'm Scott Bauer. I'm from West Harmon. In the past, you've been given information regarding the lack of safety to humans regarding 5G, information that the Children's Health Defense and Environmental Health Trust sued the FCC, who regulates wireless communications, in regard to the lack of safety, which included 11,000 pages. I'm sorry, this better? Okay. Which included 11,000 pages of scientific evidence against the safety of 5G in regards to human health. Also, you have been informed of New Hampshire's halt on 5G for the same reasons. Additionally, the City Board of Health in Pittsfield, Massachusetts, voted to send a cease and desist regarding a Verizon cell tower after several neighbors became sick when a cell tower was powered up in that area. As well as New Hampshire legislature has voted to send historic legislation on cell tower radiation to interim study after hearing extensive testimony regarding the health effects of cell tower radiation. House Bill 1644 would establish a setback of 1,640 feet for cellular antennas. A group of mayors in Ohio are working to stop 5G from coming into their areas. And the Massachusetts Medical Association voted to adopt a resolution calling for more research and evidence based on the effects of radio frequency radiation on human health. Clearly, they have seen enough evidence to warrant such research. Our natural rhythm is something close to the Schumann resonance of the Earth, which is about 7.83 hertz. We are now talking about frequency bands for 5G, C-band, that are billions of times this frequency. Most 5G are 28 gigahertz, which is 28 billion cycles per second. Now we have electrical devices that operate also in terahertz, which is trillions of hertz. To say this is completely unnatural is the understatement of the millennium. It is completely out of balance, disharmonious, and insane. It is wreaking havoc on our energy fields. There's more studies and articles about this, such as the electromagnetic hypersensitivity close to mobile phone base stations, a case study in Stockholm, Sweden, the role of non-ionizing electromagnetic radiation on female fertility, impacts of smartphone radiation on pregnancy, low-intensity electromagnetic fields cause of early onset Alzheimer's, which has 18 distinct types of evidence. Swedish study says 5G causes microwave syndrome. 5G is not green. It harms the birds, bees, and trees. Public Health of England states that excessive use of mobile phones by children should actually be discouraged. 5G networks use the same frequency as pain-inflicting crowd-controlled weapons. And research suggests cell tower radiation harms the wildlife, which is not good for the state of South Dakota and the hunting and tourism industries. So are we willing to harm some businesses to, quote, help others? Are we willing to destroy our nature, including humans, for the profit of some industries? Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Beth Bauer. So after informing the council regarding all of what Scott and Sonia have spoken to you in the past, we find that we're still in the same place as we were a year ago, and we would like some discussion with the board about all of this 5G. We know the plan is to put over 700 cell towers in downtown Mitchell, and for the health of the community, that is just not safe. Being you're elected into this position, we know that you are here to represent people in the community, and we're hoping that we can get this on your agenda and discuss this. I have dozens of people in the community who have complained to me about their sudden health issues that have occurred since 5G was turned up higher in January. The issues that have persisted for them, and some of these for myself, include insomnia, ADHD, attentiveness and focus, tremors, tingling, dizziness, nausea, diarrhea, headaches, brain fog, and anxiety. If dozens of people that I personally know are already having issues with the current amount of 5G, what do we think adding more is going to do to everyone? I know that they say 5G is going to expand business, but if all your consumers die from 5G, how much business do you have? We need to care more about people's health. I can bring in people into the meeting. I can bring you tons of people who are against 5G if that is what we need to show you the importance of this. Clearly, as we have stated, there are other parts of the country where mayors and city councils, legislatures, and medical boards are responding to their constituents' health issues that have arisen from 5G. This is a big issue. It's not going to go away. If we follow the science, then we must look at the scientific evidence, which numbers over 11,000 pages. 11,000 pages of scientific research that proves that 5G and wireless are harmful to your health and the environment. Susan Foster, a medical writer who organized a SPECT brain scan pilot study of California firefighters in 2004, said Verizon and other telecom giants, which are championed by the FCC and FDA, hide behind the illusion that their cell towers produce only a small fraction of what the FCC allows. The truth is, the FCC set those limits extraordinarily high to offer the illusion of safety. What they don't tell you is that thousands of studies by some of the world's leading physicians and scientists have found radio frequency radiation is linked to DNA damage, cancer, neurodegenerative diseases, male infertility, and electrosensitivity at a small fraction of what the FCC allows. If the firefighters, the strongest of the strong among us, sustained brain damage at 1/1000th of what the FCC allows, and this was from 2G in 2004, what are we doing to pregnant women, developing children, and to society as a whole? We must realize that big tech is not telling us the truth about the safety of wireless in order to sell their products and make profits. Listening to the industry who is selling the merchandise is not following the science. It is being scammed. Big tech is no better than the peddlers of miracle cures over a century ago. They lie to you to get you to buy their product, and their tales are not based on facts. It's time we listen and take care of this problem. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to address council? Okay, Board of Adjustment, entertain a motion for City Council recess and sit as the Board of Adjustment.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Mr. Allen, second by Mrs. Charks. I will point out that a number of these cannot be acted on because we do not have enough council members present, but we will allow you to speak to them if you're here to do that. Action to set the date for Board of Adjustment hearing 4/4/22. Robert D. Coomer of Infrastructure Design Group, representing Corey Merrick, has applied for a variance permit for front yard setback of 9 feet versus 25 feet for an existing dwelling located at 710 North Kittredge Street, legally described as Lot A in Block 2 of Robert Wilkinson's addition to the City of Mitchell, Davis County, South Dakota, is currently legally described as Lots 5 and 6 in Block 2 and south half of vacated 8th Avenue and north half of vacated alley abutting Robert Wilkinson's addition to the City of Mitchell, Davis County, South Dakota. The property is zoned R4.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Allen, second by Mrs. Charks. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this one? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to set the date for Board of Adjustment hearing 4/4/22. Robert D. Coomer of Infrastructure Design Group Incorporated, representing Larry Weiser, has applied for a variance permit for the following. Lot A, minimum front yard setback 19 feet versus 25 feet for an existing dwelling. Lot B, minimum front yard setback 19 feet versus 25 feet for an existing dwelling. Minimum side yard setback of 12.2 feet versus 20 feet for an existing dwelling. Minimum lot width of 67.06 feet versus 70 feet. Minimum lot area of 9,580 square feet versus 10,000 square feet. Located at 1510 and 1512 East First Avenue, legally described as lots A and B in Block 10 of St. Green's addition, or replat of lots 10, 11, and 12 in Block 10 of St. Green's addition of the City of Mitchell, Davis County, South Dakota, and is currently legally described as lots 10, 11, and 12, Block 10 of St. Green addition, City of Mitchell, Davis County, South Dakota. Property is zoned R2.
Move to set the date.
Motion by Mr. Rice, second by Mr. McCardle. Any further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this one? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Hearing and action on application for Bueller, tabled to 4/4/22. Carrie and Darlene Bueller applied for a variance permit for an attached garage and accessory building combination of 2,160 square feet versus 2,000 square feet in a maximum height for an accessory building of 30 feet versus 22 feet located at 600 Green Ridge Lane, legally described as Lot 3, Block 2, Green Ridge Addition, City of Mitchell, Davis County, South Dakota. Property is zoned R1. This will require tabling because we don't have enough.
Move to table. Second.
Motion by Mr. McCardle to table, second by Mr. Rice. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this one? Okay, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Hearing in action on an application for DLJ. DLJ LLC has applied for a variance of approximately 867 feet versus 1,000 feet as required from another medical cannabis dispensary located at 501 East Juniper Avenue, legally described as Lot S3A, excluding east 63 feet of the replat of Lot S in the northwest quarter of Section 27, Township 103 North, Range 60 West of 5th Prime Meridian, City of Mitchell, Davis County, property zone highway business. This will require table.
Move to table.
Motion by Mr. Charks, second by Mr. Rice. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this one? Come on up.
Hello again, I'm Nick Coomer. I'm a partial property owner located on 419 East Juniper Avenue in Mitchell, South Dakota. I'm here today to ask that you deny the variance application for the applicant. The applicant is going to say that they should be allowed variance of 133 feet because they want you to measure from door to door instead of property line to property line. They will likely say that the business is not on the same side of the street. I've drove between these two properties many times when the building was occupied by Campbell Supply, and I can tell you the travel time is barely 30 seconds. To be honest, the distance between the property is a decision whether or not to turn left or right off of Burr Street. It may not be the same as having several cannabis dispensaries in one strip mall, which is never mentioned in the intent of the regulation, but 1,000 foot is still having a dispensary close, and will still have a higher concentration within one area of town. This would allow 4 of your 5 cannabis dispensary permits to be within a concentrated part of town. The 3 that are already approved are within 3/4 of a mile of each other. You don't need to allow a 4th. The town is approximately 7.5 miles in length, north to south. The other 2 remaining permits should be in another part of town, not on the south side of town where there are 3 already approved. Measuring from door to door does not make sense and is not practical and would require more oversight by city staff, which may not even be feasible. Property lines are consistent and do not easily change. They can change with a lengthy public process, but this is not a common. They are objective and not subjective. Building permits are very common, so are renovations to interior building layouts and future buildings/expansions on properties, which often change the location of outside doors. If you all choose to measure from door to door instead of property line to property line, then there is a chance that the outside door location may change from one door that the cannabis establishments are being measured against. Measuring door to door is not practical. It is also more subjective in nature than measuring from property lines, since location of outside doors and the buildings can easily change. Section 1015.1 establishes the intent of Chapter 15 cannabis establishments. Per this section, the intent is to minimum the negative effects cannabis establishments have on adjacent land uses, which acknowledges that there are negative effects on the nearby landowners and businesses wherever these cannabis establishments are located. Secondly, the section goes on to say that the intent is for the purpose of preventing a concentration of certain cannabis establishments in any one area. In other words, the higher the concentration in one area, the more negative impacts on the nearby landowners and businesses. My ask for you today is that you keep the established intent of these regulations in mind, continual disregard of the regulation in favor of allowing a higher concentration of cannabis establishments in one area of town, and closer together only erodes away the well-intended intent of the regulations. Those nearby landowners and businesses are your citizens, and they are the ones you are trying to protect, not the cannabis establishment owners. Continue to put the interests of these citizens first. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Stan?
Dwight Stadler, Ward 4. First, Doug Daly stated the concerns of opposition in his letter far more eloquently than I can. I adamantly oppose this variance request. You spent months going through the pains of establishing standards and limits for cannabis businesses. Councilor Rice, I believe it was you that stated the council was basically establishing the same or similar parameters to liquor sales for uniformity for establishing the same standards as you would for liquor sales. So here's my point. If you deviate from the standards after the agonizing, painstaking efforts to be fair and objective putting them in place, then it renders your word meaningless. It renders the ordinance meaningless. You might as well package it up, toss it away. Of the 9 official notifications listed to property owners, 2 responded, plus 2 additional outside of that list. Thomas Patzer, to approve. The Patzers were listed twice on your notification list. Thus, they received 2 notices giving them a double vote in your survey notifications. Lori Coomer, trust to approve. Therefore, of the 9 official notifications you received, 1/3, you got 1/3 back, or 33%. That's including the double vote the Patzers got. This means the other 6 will be counted as approvals, even though there is no objective evidence to support such. The 2 additional responses aside from your official list of property owners notified are Philip Lee, TK Electric, Linda McEntee, email letter. Another letter was from attorney Doug Daly representing both Lori Coomer and Philip Lee. Will you count and consider Philip Lee's and Linda McEntee's and Doug Daly's responses? Or will you just ignore them and count the 6 non-responses as approvals? My point is, as I stated in my citizens' input, your survey notification process is flawed. How are you going to count those votes? How will you consider, for the record, the additional unrequested responses outside of your official list? Do they have a say, or will you just consider them meaningless dribble? The bottom line of my input and vote is that I adamantly oppose this variance request, and you need to stand by the standards that you worked your tails off to establish. Also, I'm anxious to see how you're going to consider and count your notification survey responses. In regard to your notifications to property owners, my recommendation is to throw out the non-responses and count only all those who corresponded, including those not on your notification list. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Good evening. Amber Coomer Powers, part owner of 419 East Juniper. Before I start, I just want to take a moment to thank you all for what you do for this great community, my hometown. And I work in local government, and although I work on this side of the table as an ICMA credentialed city administrator like Stephanie, I know the type of dedicated servants it takes to sit and serve on this side. Thank you very much. I'm here today to simply ask you to please remember why you chose to use the awesome power of your home rule charter to pass Chapter 15 cannabis regulations in the first place, which include the 1,000-foot setback requirement that the applicant is asking you to disregard. You didn't have to pass Chapter 15. You have home rule authority. This isn't a Dillon's Law state, but thankfully you did. Why did you pass it? Well, Chapter 15, Article 1 intent tells everyone why. You did it because, 1, you want to, quote, minimize the negative effects cannabis establishments have on the adjacent land uses, end quote. 2, you have a great interest in the present and future character of the city's residential and commercial neighborhoods, end quote. And 3, you want to prevent, quote, a concentration of certain cannabis establishments in any one area. These are great and admirable intentions. A high concentration of dispensaries have a negative effect on the assessed property valuations of the surrounding properties in the saturated area. Allowing 4 of your 5 cannabis dispensary permits in one part of town is clearly a concentration and will decrease the amount of property taxes received when the assessed valuations decrease in that area. That directly impacts your citizens and their taxes. Having 3 of your 5 permits within less than 3/4 of a mile away from each other is already a high concentration. Please don't allow 4. Remember, you as servant leaders used your home rule authority to protect not the applicants of the cannabis dispensaries, but instead the surrounding property and business owners, and most importantly the citizens of this great community who are and should be concerned about a high concentration of cannabis dispensaries in one part of their town and how that impacts the overall community. And when I say one part of town, remember what part of town I'm talking about. The part of town that everyone in town has to pass through in order to get to the giant retailer on the south side of I-90, and the part of town that nearly 500,000 visitors pass through each year to get to Mitchell's iconic Corn Palace. This isn't some rundown industrial part of town tucked away in a hidden corner. This is your most visible and prominent part of town. I implore you to please keep your intentions in mind. And 1, follow and respect the thoughtful recommendation of your appointed planning commission, which is unanimously recommending that you deny this variance application. 2, not approve this variance because doing so inherently goes against what your own variance regulations say about not approving a variance that is contrary to the public's interest. And as your zoning codes also say, the public has an interest in not having a concentration of dispensaries in one part of town. And finally, 3, do not erode away at the regulations you put in place to protect your citizens. I'm sure you've already been asked to make additional changes to the city's regulations to reduce the setback or to measure from arbitrary things like doorknobs. But please remember your great intentions for the regulations, and do not give in to the pressures from those who only have their interest in mind and not the citizens' best interest. You didn't pass the regulations for the cannabis applicants. You passed them for the citizens and the surrounding businesses. Why? Because you're servant leaders who truly care about your community. Please continue to care and deny this variance request, just like the Planning Commission is unanimously recommending that you do. There are plenty of other areas in town that are zoned for this use and don't require you to abandon the great intentions you had when you chose to pass Chapter 15 in the first place. Thanks again for you do this for this great community.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. My name is Doug Daly. I'm here on behalf of the Coomers as well as the Lees who own TK Electric. I'll be brief. I know that you've seen my letter. I do want to start out by asking if you all received a copy of the email from Lori Coomer dated March 16th of this year. I just note that it wasn't listed in the documents on the agenda. I see a bunch of head nods. Okay. Thank you very much. You know, I think Nick and Amber did a very good job expressing a lot of the things that I was going to mention and that are also listed in my letter here today. But I just want to bring up a couple things. I think the key is to look at the spirit of the ordinances and that we need to stick with it, because we're not here to protect the people who are looking to have a cannabis establishment, and we're not saying we're against cannabis establishments. However, we do have a pretty significant concentration, which is the exact intent that these ordinances were trying to avoid. With the change in the ordinance, by eliminating the highway right-of-way, there will now be 3 right along that same corridor. I know one's on the south side of the interstate, but there will be 2 right along Burr Street, right as you pull off. And if you were to pass the variance with regard to DLJ, we would then have 4 in that area. I also want to provide information that I talked to some other local business owners that also have a similar concern to that with regard to being our main entrance into town. He authorized me to give you his name, Dave Helloyd, who is the owner of a motel on Burr Street there as you come into town, also has some concerns for that. He wasn't able to be here tonight. My understanding is he has reached out to a few of you, and he too would be against the, I guess, concentration of medical cannabis establishments on that area of town. We just ask that you uphold the board's duty, and that is to protect the public interests, and we believe that you have chosen to reiterate the intent of the zoning establishments, and that is to prevent a concentration of cannabis establishments. So we're asking you to deny the application. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to address this? Okay, there is a motion to table. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Hearing an action on the application of Genesis Farm LLC conditional use. Table to 424 is required by the applicant. Okay. Motion by Mr. Rice, second by Mr. Sabers. Thanks for not making me read all that. Anybody want to discuss this? Anybody in the audience? Come on up, Mr. Savin.
I'm back. The curse of the night, right? Okay. Dwight Stadler, Ward 4. First, I fail to see how you can consider a permit to operate without first considering the requested variance of the distance requirements for such business, which is the next item on your agenda. The reason is because the permit request cites the exact same location as involved with the variance request. So if you grant them a permit to operate the cannabis dispensary at that location, then you're inherently approving the variance request. I'm not necessarily opposed to a medical cannabis dispensary conditional use permit, but I am opposed to the location. I believe there are other locations in the city aside from this location in such close proximity to the Main Street and the Corn Palace, a tourism draw, by the way, as well as the religious institutions from which they are seeking a distance variance. Again, regarding the surrounding property owner notification survey letters, you received 2 back, or 13% of the 15 purportedly sent out. Presumably, you will count the remaining 13 non-respondents as approvals, but my concerns: why is the city of Mitchell listed on your notification list? Who from the city is responding? Will the city's lack of a response constitute an approval vote? If that's the case, why are we even addressing this if it's already going to be approved? Quite frankly, that's a conflict of interest, since the city will decide that tonight purportedly, but I think it's been requested to be tabled, objectively based on objective evidence, public input, pros and cons, and the standards you created. Again, what about the other 4 respondents not on your official notification list? Will their input be counted or ignored? Once again, I recommend throwing out the non-responses and count only the correspondence received, which is 4 opposed, based on what I saw on your website, and 2 approval votes. I think you get my point now about your property owner notification process. Finally, again, I'm not necessarily opposed to a medical cannabis dispensary, but I am opposed to this location because it appears to violate the required distance from religious institutions, which you guys spent a lot of time trying to figure that stuff out. Thank you for your time and listening.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to address this one? Okay, we have a motion to table it. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Hearing and action on application for Genesis Farms LLC variance table to 44222 as requested by the applicant.
Move to table.
Motion by Mr. Allen, second by Mr. McCardle. To table. Further discussion? Anybody else? Come on up.
Yes, I'm speaking on one. Dwight Stadler, Ward 4 again. Same thing. I adamantly oppose this variance request, and as I stated with the DLJ variance request, you spent months going through the pains of establishing the standards and limits for cannabis businesses. And again, if you deviate from those standards you put together, you're basically rendering them meaningless. Lastly, I apologize for the redundancy, but again, the property owner notification process is flawed. I have a lot written here, but I'm not going to go through it. I think I've made my point on that, so I can beat that horse to death or ground it into sausage or whatever you want me to do with it. But you have to decide based on objective evidence, public input, and the standards you painstakingly created. Finally, again, I adamantly oppose this variance request. In turn, if it is disapproved, then the conditional use permit should also be disapproved, as it cites the exact same location as for the variance request. There are other locations in Mitchell that would be more appropriate, and again, I'm not necessarily opposed to the conditional use permit, just simply that location. Thank you very much for listening again.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to address this? Okay, we have a motion to table. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Reconvene the City Council, entertain a motion for Board of Adjustment to adjourn City Council, reconvene in regular session. Motion by Mr. Rice. Second by Mr. Sabers. Further discussion. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Hearings and actions to approve the following medical cannabis dispensary applications. These, with the exception of one, I will mention them, but they'll have to be tabled. DLJ LLC received on 11/16/2021 at 5:02 p.m. That one will have to be tabled. Motion by Mr. McCardle, second by Mr. Allen. Further discussion. Mr. Stadler, you want to talk to that?
Sure. Actually, my presentation is talk to all 3 of them if you want to. Do I need to go by each one, or you want me to?
Yeah, well, they'll have to vote on them independently, so.
Okay.
Well, if you want to give it all at once, that's up to you.
I'll give it all at once for all 3, and then you can do what you will.
So, for your information, the order is DLJ, Genesis, and then FSST.
Correct. That's
First 2 require tabling. FSST, which is the Flanders Sioux Tribe, meets all the requirements, so it does not require tabling. They can act on it tonight.
Okay. As I previously stated, another medical cannabis dispensary, Dwight Stadler, Ward 4. As I previously stated in another medical cannabis dispensary request this evening, I'm not opposed to medical cannabis dispensaries, but as previously cited, if such license establishment requests place them in a location in violation of the required distancing ordinances established, then I oppose such. And if you look at those applications for their licenses, they cite the exact same locations that they're requesting variances for. So if you approve this, then you've already approved the variances inherently. That's my take on that. I see that both DLJ and Genesis Farms cite the very addresses for which they are requesting distance. Okay. As for Fsst Farms, at this time I'm not familiar with any distance issues that may be applicable, as I don't see any requests for variances. However, when I looked at the map on the internet, I'm uncertain of their distance from the old Runnings building, which is, I understand it is designated for a cannabis dispensary. If that distance is less than 1,000 feet, then I recommend disapproval because of the distance violation. Otherwise, if they are at or beyond the 1,000 feet criteria, it's kind of tough because now I've heard about the concentration of cannabis places over on that stretch. I think I would inherently oppose that and join that group as well in a disapproval for Fsst Farms for a license at that location. And that basically concludes that. Any questions, concerns? Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to address this? Mr. Daly?
Hello again, Doug Daly. Just for the record, I understand this will be tabled. I'm here on behalf of the Coomer Family Trust, that's the owner of the properties, as well as the Coomer family, as well as Lee Electric, Inc., and Phil Lee and his family, and we oppose the request for issuance of a medical cannabis dispensary license for DLJ. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to address this one? Okay, we have a motion to table. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Genesis Farms LLC received on 11/18/2021 at 4:22 p.m. This one needs to be tabled as well.
Move to table.
Motion by Mrs. Chark, second by Mr. Rice. Further discussion? Mr. Stadler, you're covered on this one?
Yeah, I spoke to all three. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, anybody else wish to address this? Okay, we have a motion to table. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Fsst Farms LLC received on 11/22/2021 at 4:30 p.m. Motion by Mr. McCardle, second by Mr. Rice. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this one?
I'd just note, because there was the comment earlier on the distance, it is over 1,000 feet from the Runnings property to this property.
Okay, thank you.
And I think that I'd like to just mention that the fact that this is legal and they fit within all of the criteria of the ordinance, we really don't have much of an option but to approve it, as I understand it.
I'd say staff in our review did not have a lot of concern about their materials that they applied. It all appears to comply with the ordinance requirements. As with the first two applications that we gave preliminary approval to, I would recommend that council approve this one on condition that they complete the building permit process and a fire inspection before they actually go into operation.
Motion to include those comments? He's amending his.
What he said.
I heard him say it. I can't say it, but Justin can. I'll second it.
Okay, and Mr. Rice will second that. Okay, further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to approve special event permit for Lost and Found Advocates 5K, April 9th, 2022.
Mr. Mayor, Council, Joe Schrader, Public Works Director. As you said, this is requested for April 9th. It's from 7:30 to 2 out at the soccer complex. They also requested a noise permit for announcements, and staff recommends approval.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Allen, second by Mr. Savers. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to approve amendment number 1 to agreement A 2021-14 Risk and Resiliency Assessment Project 2021-36 with HDR.
Mr. Mayor, Council, Joe Schrader, Public Works Director. HDR recently completed our Risk and Resiliency Assessment, or an RRA, which was approved by Council on March 15, 2021. The RRA identified our critical assets for our water system, as well as potential risks, which included severe storms, winter weather, tornadoes, loss of staff, loss of supply chain, or contamination. The ERP basically takes those risks and then gives us a plan to follow if one of those happen. This is a requirement by the EPA, and we'll have to recertify every 5 years. The original fee was $25,880 for the RRA, which finished under budget. The amendment to complete the ERP is $11,500 for a new total fee of $37,380, and staff recommends approval.
Question, I see we're covering this with professional services. Does that leave enough for other anticipated professional services?
Yep, this was a budgeted item. That's
Okay.
actually coming in under budget.
Okay.
Move approval of HDR.
Risk and Resiliency Assessment.
Agreement for emergency response plan.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Rice, second by Mr. McCardle. Okay, further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to award bid for 9th and 5th reconstruction project 2021-07. Mr. Trey.
Mr. Mayor and Council. Yep. Bids were opened on March 15th, 22 here in City Hall Council Chambers at 1:30. We received 3 bids. The low bid was by Menning Excavating, Inc. for $2,874,264.22. First Rate Excavate was within 2.5% of that, and H&W was within 7.8%. The engineer's estimate was roughly $2.5 million. There is an attached detailed bid tabulation if you want to take a look. There is an error in my report that said we're approximately over budget by $141,000. We're actually over budget by $621,100 when we account for professional fees. We did negotiate with the contractor to remove the removals for the project, so we will complete that with city forces. And that is a cost savings of $229,841.75, which would be a revised bid total of $2,644,000, or can't read tonight, $2,644,419.47.
They're big numbers, don't
I know. So what this means is we actually came in under budget with our water fund. We're right at budget with sanitary sewer. We are over budget in our general fund, storm sewer and street, by roughly $500,000. And that's what I am requesting be supplemented. And I'll let Stephanie kind of explain that.
So we finished the first, Stephanie Alwine, City Administrator, we finished the first review of supplemental appropriations. You'll see that the first reading was not scheduled tonight. I did learn of the overage on this bid, so we pulled that for the agenda so that we'd have time to include that as part of the supplements for council to consider. We would propose using unspent 2021 budget funds, and then we could also use for the street portion the money that we get for the state for repairs and maintenance of street work as well if we needed to. I guess when we were talking about this, it doesn't really make sense to wait because that cost will go up and it will just get us farther behind on the other projects that we have to do. So considering we have the funding to add to the supplemental appropriation that you'll be hearing first reading at the next meeting, we'd recommend moving forward with this project. We don't have any other projects to take this place for 2022.
I guess I don't have a problem, and I'll speak the concern I have. The concern I have is since we weren't planning on doing this from a city manpower standpoint, that we're going to have the city manpower available to do it.
And Joe, how much was the city manpower?
Removals, it'll take probably a week to 2 weeks, depending on the time frame. They plan on starting later June, so it'll be right around the time that we want to chip seal. But talking with Kevin Roth, he feels there might be some smaller maintenance projects that get pushed. But, I mean, we're getting a good start on our work already,
Okay.
so we're hoping to be ahead of schedule anyway. And we feel that it won't set us back very much if we do take it on.
I guess the other discussion would be is if council's not comfortable having city staff do that work, we could leave that amount in there.
We could amend it.
And we could include that as part of the supplemental appropriation as well.
I'd like to try it. The flip side of that is that if it doesn't work and we're back in October, November, December saying, hey, we didn't get this done, we're going to push it into 2023, that's the possibility, and it sometimes happens anyway and more frequently than I like, but when you're running that big a project that takes more than a year, sometimes that happens. The flip side of why I think we need to do it is it's only going to get more expensive
Right.
if we don't do these now, and they've been identified as areas that need to be replaced. So with that, I'll move approval of award the bid to Menning Excavating for the 9th and 5th reconstruction project.
Just to clarify, with the city doing the removal,
Yes, with the update
as Joe stated. Okay, just want to make sure
Yes.
we were, thank you. So I have a motion by Mr. Rice, second by Mrs. Charks. Further discussion?
Just one further comment. The reason why we looked at using the 2021 unspent funds or additional revenue is we're really trying to reserve that 2022 contingency funds, just not knowing what is going to happen with fuel prices and
It's
other
still only
projects coming in, right? So trying to not touch that as much as possible.
And I'll point out, so you are prepared, there will be some bigger bids coming up that will probably follow this same trend, and it will be bigger numbers than what we're seeing here. Yep, just warning.
Knock that off.
Expectations. If it comes in under, I'll be first to say I was wrong and great.
Yeah, I'll bet you would, because it'd be wrong in the right direction. Okay, yeah. Any other discussion? Estimates are only good for about 30 seconds.
That's right.
Anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to award bid for Dry Run Creek Lighting Project 2022-33. Mr. Nelson, are you going to speak to this, or are you going to make Mr. Schrader do it?
I sure can, Mr. Mayor and Council. Bid opening for this project as well was
State your name so the people watching.
Kevin Nelson, Park and Rec.
Thanks, sir.
Bid opening for this project as well was done on March 15th. We had 3 bids, one from Muth Electric, one from Builders Electric, one from Lee Electric, DBA, TK Electric. The low bid came in from Builders Electric out of Sioux Falls at $139,935.15. And they, remarkably, it came in under bid. We were all pleased with that. We recommend that we go with this company.
Go figure, we made one underneath.
Yeah, so that will be your one bid for the year under budget.
I was hoping you were going to let me end with good news.
Yeah.
Fat chance, all right. Don't you have more on here yet, Mr. Schrader? You're done, okay.
My only question, have we done work with Builders Electric before, city-wise?
We have not, but we did make some phone calls, and it sounds like they're reputable, and we're hoping that'll be a good project.
Okay.
And just a reminder also for the public, there was a significant grant that the city received for the project as well, so I believe 80% of that cost is covered by the grant.
Move to approve Builders Electric.
Okay, motion by Mrs. Charks,
Second.
second by Mr. Allen. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to approve resolution R 2022-08, plat of lots 1 through 15 and 2 through 28 of Airport Addition, a subdivision previously platted lots 2 and 3 of Fiala's Addition in the east half of the northwest quarter of Section 4, Township 103 North, Range 60 west of the 5th Prime Meridian, City of Mitchell, Davis County, South Dakota, as requested by PSG Properties, LLC. Mr. Jenigas.
Mayor and Council, Planning Commission recommended approval of this 5-0 with 1 absent and 1 abstaining. They have about 22 lots left out there, 24 lots out there to develop on. SPN's working on a master plan, which there was a master plan done before this one, but they changed some things and the city has required more in the master plan than what was before, so a developer's agreement will also be provided by SPN prior to anything being constructed out there. If you have any questions for me, I can entertain them.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Allen. Second by Mr. McCardle. Further discussion?
And so this takes Fiala Road all the way out to National Guard Road?
This does not take Fiala Road all the way out to National Guard Road.
The top of that says National Guard Road?
Well, it connects them, but
Right, but the platted
goes
area
yep.
goes all the way to National Guard
Yes,
Road?
yes,
Yeah.
sorry, yes.
That was what I meant.
Yep.
Okay, anybody else? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to approve resolution R 2022-09, a plat of track 1 of the west 626.84 feet of lot 5 of Crane's Addition in the southeast quarter of section 34, Township 103 North, Range 60 west of the 5th Prime Meridian, Davis County, South Dakota, as requested by Ronald and Michelle Riggs.
Mayor and Council, Planning Commission recommended approval 6-0 with 1 absent, subject to county approval. This isn't within the 1 mile, so it's city zoning jurisdiction, but it's within the 3 miles, so county has to approve the plat as well. The applicant purchased the 626.84 feet and now is platting down just out their house that they've already built up there. County will hear this on the 5th and the 12th of April.
Move approval on the county decision.
Motion by Mr. McCardle, second by Mr. Sabers. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Second reading on ordinance O 2022-03, rezoning of Lot 1, Block 1 of Fullerton Properties, second edition, a subdivision of the north half of Section 16 and a portion of the previously platted Outlot B2, a subdivision of Outlot B, Section 16, all in Township 103 North, Range 60 west of the 5th Prime Meridian, City of Mitchell, Davis County, South Dakota, from public lands to R3. I will take this opportunity to point out we have made a bit of a change in what we plan to do with this. After some discussions, it's been decided that the city will get an appraisal on this, and we will list it for sale to anybody who is interested in the property.
I just want to reiterate, Planning Commission recommended approval 5-0 with 2 absent. I have not heard anything new from anybody since the first reading, so nothing more has come into my office for it at all. I can entertain any questions you have.
And I'd just piggyback off the mayor's comments there. All that's in front of you tonight is just the rezoning of the lot. If there's going to be future action that would facilitate a transfer, that would come back to the council. And at that point, you could decide if there were going to be any conditions attached to the sale of that property or anything along those lines.
I see that there are several of the neighbors that are here. Do you guys have anything you want to talk about with regards to this?
Hello, Corey Arneson, live 2 houses north on 1513 Minnesota. I just had a few questions and a few comments about the lot itself, even if we're going to change how you're going to,
Corey, can you talk into the mic?
how are you going to move forward with it. Does anybody know how many houses Mitchell needs to keep up with growth to the city?
I don't know if you quantified exactly, but we need a lot more than we got.
I mean, if we don't know an exact number or a rough number, then, I mean, what kind of crisis are we in? Are we in a moderate crisis, severe crisis? I mean, and I guess the next question is, how many houses are getting built by the local contractors in town that are investing heavily into growing Mitchell? I mean,
Yes.
there again, nobody knows how many houses are getting built, nobody knows how many houses are needed. Yeah, I mean, I see tons of houses getting built, and they're investing tons of resources into growing Mitchell and neighborhoods. And I'm wondering, how did the city not sell that lot to Fullerton?
The road initially was going to go straight and tie into Minnesota there.
Okay.
And rather than have offset intersections like you have at Main Street and 15th, they elected to curve it down and tie it in across from the existing intersection on
Okay.
15th.
Yeah, I was kind of curious how that
Which
actually...
ended up with an extra lot that wasn't used then.
Okay.
Otherwise, that would have been part of the road.
Okay. The city also says that it's not a park by any means, and that the city has overabundance of parks compared to the size that it is. I'd like to compare just one place that I know personally that my family and I go to quite often. The population of Mitchell is 15,727 roughly. And it's about 12.3 square miles. Has 14 city parks, 29 lakeside parks or access areas, for a total of about 43 parks. Most of the parks are actually considered access points to the city or access points to the water. And one is designated as the Corn Palace Plaza, which is a green space, which, yes, it is definitely a park, which is great that we added one and took out a street. I like to compare that to a town that we go quite often, Verrado, Arizona. It's a suburb of Buckeye. Population is a little bit larger, 20,905. The size is a little bit bigger as well, 13.75 square miles. They have 78 parks, none of them considered access between green space and true parks, and they also include dog parks into their equation, which is 4. They consider that they do not want any neighbors to have to cross a busy street in order to access a park. They're just trying to consider quality of life, and that's the reason that they're growing as big as they are. And lastly, if this is the first project of the Mitchell Development Corporation and no neighbor is supporting it, I mean, how do other neighborhoods think about them moving to their neighborhood and trying to...
Well, right now, it won't be Mitchell or Development.
Yeah,
It'll be open to whoever wants to buy it.
First time hearing about it, that's just what I had. But still, I mean, you said the money's probably going to go to them once it gets sold.
Well, that would be up to council, but
Yes.
yes, we are proposing to let them have some seed money for their Mahi development.
I mean, to us, it kind of feels like a hostile takeover to our neighborhood. You know, we're getting forced into this. When I bought my property, I knew exactly that there was an apartment across the street. That wasn't moving, that was already there. There was an empty lot that was going to be getting built on kind of behind me. That was, I think, one of the only lots.
Did you oppose them building on the empty lot behind you?
No, because it wasn't
Why
it was already zoned for building.
Okay.
Along with the duplex that got built further back in the neighborhood was also zoned for building on. This was never zoned for building on, so I never considered that.
Well, it wasn't zoned for not building on, it just happened to be owned by the public, which makes it public land.
Yeah.
Which is why it's PL.
Well, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else wish to address this?
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Mark Wilson, 710 West 15th, Ward 4. So I live directly west of the property in question. I want each of you to picture yourself sitting at Cadwell Park behind home plate. And I know most of you are sports fans. I've seen you there at Cadwell in the past. And look out and think about what you see out past left center field. Today you just see a few houses, right? Think about if you had a pickleball court there or a picnic shelter where fans that are enjoying the state amateur baseball tournament could spend some extra quality time with their family. I feel that this land that was up until 2 weeks ago documented on the city website a city park continue to be a city park. So appreciate your time.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to address it? Okay. We're still waiting for a motion. Motion by Mr. McCardle.
I'll second that.
Second by Mr. Sabers. Further discussion. Anybody else want to speak to this before we go to the vote? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. But
No.
oh, Mrs. Sharks opposes. Motion to adopt ordinance 02022-03.
Move to adopt.
Motion by Mr. Allen, second by Mr. Rice. Further discussion. Anybody want to address this in the audience? Roll call.
McCardle.
Aye.
Allen.
Aye.
Sharps.
Nay.
Sabers.
Aye. Sorry.
Rice.
Aye.
Motion carries. We're adjourned.